Good morning. Welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program, covering natural health on this year, Wednesday morning, Rise and Shine, and give God the glory. And this morning here, I'm looking at a topic, prevention, nourishment, cleansing. Address the smaller things you can do for yourselves. So prevention, nourishment, cleansing, address the smaller things you can do for yourselves. And so I have some articles to share with you today and some information that is important, two articles that will help you along the way. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of this day, your word that you've given to us, and bless us, dear Lord, and give us insight, foresight, that we might know what is coming and be able to take the different steps that we need to take to protect ourselves. May you bless us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. Amen. So this morning here, I'm continuing with my theme for this week is gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. So we're taking this again from John chapter 6, verse 11 through 13. And notice here, and Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together, and filled 12 baskets with fragments of 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. So this is very important for us. When it comes on to health, we have to not have any losses. We have to be very careful as we possibly can, to not suffer any loss, because what's happening in our society when it comes on to healthcare, what's happening when it comes on to just money in healthcare, is that you want to be able to take care of yourself as much as possible. One of the ways is to make sure you get up all the fragments. Don't leave any stone unturned, because you don't want to be in a system that it's a profit-driven system. It will hurt you in the long run. And so we gather up all the fragments that remain, and that nothing be lost. We pay attention to everything. You invest in your health. You invest in exercise. You invest in water, externally, internally. You invest in prevention methods to keep yourself healthy. You invest in the fragments, in the small stuff, the things that the big system don't think. So when we think about health, a lot of time we're thinking about drugs, surgery, big facility, big time doctors, big time money, $100,000, surgery, $100,000 immunotherapy. This is the type of thing we're talking about. People are talking about, and this is what make people get up and think, oh yeah, this is what it is. But you don't want to get to that point. You want to avoid that as much as possible. You avoid that by, to me, dealing with the cheaper stuff, the smaller stuff, the things that is in your control. So prevention, nourishment, cleansing. For you, these are the things you can address for yourself, so you don't have to go to that big $100,000 drug. You don't have to go to that open heart surgery. You don't have to go to that facility that's going to cost you how much money per hour. You don't have to be airlifted if it's within your control. This is the type of thing that you want to do. So you go down that road, and that to me is similar to picking up all the fragments. You pick up the small things. You don't waste anything, because it's going to cost you so much in the long run that you stay away from that system. And so the articles I'm talking about is going to really illuminate this point here. So this is where we need to be, and this is where we need, we're going to talk. So notice here, Christ says you gather up all the fragments. And because remember, whatever we're doing, you're going to need it tomorrow. Whatever we're doing for life, as the point I was making on Monday, was that when you have say barley loaves, and you have the fragments from the barley loaves, and pick up 12 baskets, the same situation is going to happen again. You're going to need to eat tomorrow again. You're going to eat for lunch. You need for dinner. The same food is going to be needed again. So especially with things that you're going to need, it's not a question. If I say to you, you need to have a regular exercise program, this is not a question if it's going to be important for you next week and the following week. It is what it is. But you could, say, that's not that important. Well, you're going to pay every price for that. And we're talking about here how to avoid paying every price. And so we want to be able to, as I say, pick up the fragments, get the things that you need, that it's going to be of immense value coming down the road in the future. This is what's going to be. So this is where you need to be at. And this is where we're at. Now, first article I want to share, because we're talking about natural health here. This was a piece that was put out by JAMAnetwork.com, JAMAnetwork.com, so prestigious journal, health medical journal. And they analyze the social and structural determinants. And this is the COVID-19, and it's entitled COVID-19 and Racial Ethnic Disparity. So we always go here. Now, some people wonder, why would this be so important? Because to me, the potency of a preaching is if it's work for, as our Christ says, he preached the gospel to the poor. When it takes a person from the lowest rungs of life, the lowest levels of life, and it can lift him up, dust him off, wash him, clothe him, straighten up his mind, and make him become prestigious as the Jama, rock solid, then we know that it's good. This is to me the potency of the gospel. There's people who are very lettered, people with PhD, double PhD. They will say why Christ is not good, and is false, is because he preached to the poor, and his followers were primarily poor. Because they're poor, they're not, he wasn't endorsed by the PhD, which was the murderers of Christ, the Pharisees. I see it differently. I see that Christ is potent because he's able to make very intelligent, powerful men out of fishermen. That to me is a prophet. You take somebody, if I'm preaching about, say, country living, and I say it's better to live in, like, you're going to see in a second why I mentioned this, it's better to live in a rural area. And I'm teaching that, and I'm teaching it to people who are multimillionaires. Well, it's they don't need to be taught that. They are already, for the most part, going to have a country home. But if I can teach it to somebody that's poor, and they try to execute based upon how I set up and explain it and lay it out and show how to get it done, and they do it and it works, then that's the power of the preaching. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So when we talk about health, we always look at this type of material, but this type of material is not because I want to look at it, because the whole society is looking at it, because they're forced to. Why? Because amongst Black, Hispanic, in this study was done looking at Black, Hispanic in some major cities, including New York and Chicago. When they find, like in Chicago, there was high rates of infections and death among Black and Hispanic, and then less than half, and less than even 4 times less for whites. So now they wanted to break it down now. So this is now further research. You heard it made the news a few weeks ago, but now here is now further breaking down what are they looking at amongst Black and Hispanic as to why they will be more susceptible. And the reasons put here are very good to look at, because you can see that it's way beyond what some people think. Every time something like this happens, people might think it's biological, but there's deeper explanation for it. And here we go. Here are some of the reasons. So you can look at the article. You can just pump it into your Google. It will come up. It's entitled COVID-19 and Racial Ethnic Disparities. And you'll see the death rate in the first paragraph or two. And then after the death rate, you'll see why they think it's higher. And so this is part of, now we're talking about picking up fragments, right? So here's a list first, and this is a summary of the list. Social and structural determinants, racial and discrimination, economic and educational disadvantages, healthcare access and quality, individual behavior, biology, comorbidities including diabetes, cardiovascular disease, asthma, HIV, morbid obesity, liver disease, and kidney disease. more crowded conditions in neighborhood, air quality, public facing occupation, chronic stress, health insurance, poor quality of care, inequitable distribution of testing, digital divide, food insecurity, or nutrition. So those are some of the lists. So if you look at it, that's a pretty long list. You can see why lists like that on initial read would affect health outcomes, right? You can see how that would affect. I'll give you an example because I always have to go by what I also observe. In my area, which is a rural area in New Jersey, they do have them. I noticed that sometime from the end of March until now, there's more New York license plate. You know, those yellow. I can't remember if it's yellow and blue or whatever it is, license plates. So what many people, and then I know somebody that lives in the Catskill, and they said there's way more city license plates, and people from the city, the place is crowded from in March, which is not normal time when it's crowded. Normally crowded when the season start, the summer season start, late spring into summer. So what many people have observed is that when this thing started to get out of control and start to blow up in the city, many people who have homes and have availability and access to get out of the city got out. But most of those people are people with means, and it just so happened in the city, most of the people with means are people who are white. So they already had, many of them had cleared out and got out of there. I saw many reports of this on Facebook before any of the deaths start to spike. And before any of this started to happen, they just got out. And I saw them increase in this area. So what I was hearing from somebody in Catskill and what I was hearing from people in Facebook and stuff like that, said many of them got out and went to either country homes or rented somewhere or something like that, get out. Well, what they do, they're limiting their exposure. So when you look at the numbers now make more sense when you understand that, because they're like, look, we're getting out of here because there's a disease running and it's already taken off in New York. And as many people had pointed out that the disease in New York, the COVID-19 in New York, seemed to be more aggressive than what's running in other parts of the world, country. It's similar to what's happening in Italy and Europe. So notice again, we're going to look at real quickly the reasons again, according to JAMA now. So this is what the scientific mind. And I think often when we make this comparison, if people are not very, like what you call it, observational and scientific in their thinking, they don't like to hear this type of stuff because it might sound racial. But this is just observation that one need to really sit and take in, because there are these differences that really account for outcomes. But many of them, you and I can do something about it. We're not crippled because of information. Information just is power. Knowledge is power. You just can't use it or you can ignore it. So social and structural determinants, right? So these are determinants that really are the rest of the list to me. The way people set up socially and they're structurally. So that means if I'm in a building and it's like we had seen this and I've shared material about this to people I text with, that in places where people live in these projects, they have so many people in a small area. So if you know already that this virus, if you're familiar with the virus and tests that they have done, that they've shown that it can still be detected in the air on a bus half an hour after the person who was infected was on the bus. And they have tested it and it's still in the air after the person breathed it out and probably coughed it out. Then they go into the bus, take a sample of the air, they can pick up COVID-19. Imagine in a place where there's an elevator. When a documentary had showed that they were showing online, I think the New Yorker, where there was problems to sanitize and stuff like that. But if you were sanitized and the person go up was coughing with COVID, then they leave the elevator, you come on, you're just breathing in COVID-19. So that can be structural. So a person just getting out of that area in the midst of a explosion of a disease, they're helping themselves out. Racism and discrimination, because remember, the structure of New York City was built in a very racist time. And so when you look at many of these cities, it seems like blacks are more urban, but many of the blacks are urban because they left Jim Crow South and fled to the city. And then they were redlined and then threatened by things like these evil elements like Ku Klux Klan. So where were Ku Klux Klan and stuff like that many times outside of the city walls. So they were kept there. This was not something that, blacks coming from Africa and from off plantations in South per se were urbanized. This is something happened because of the history of America. So it's important to note that. Why is that important? Look at where the disease took hold in Italy. It wasn't in the rural area, it was in the urban area. Well, there in the urban area, like Milan and those richer cities, well, it's just whoever lived there lived there. It's not an issue if they had structured it that black people lived there. Who lived there was the population, just Italians. Same thing in different parts of other parts of Europe. It's just whoever lived in the urban areas because it's a structural thing. It's the way it's structured. If you understand how it's hard to escape and get fresh air and so forth when you live in cramped quarters, it is just the way it's structured. They notice the same thing when they look at the Navajo, that although they live in an era big enough to be a state in its own, the thing is that they live in a multi-generational homes. So somebody's going to work, they're coming back and forth, they're infecting everybody else in the home. So although they're spread out, their structure is hard for isolation. So when you look at this, you can see the outcomes, but you can be blinded and think the outcome is biology, which it lists here. It's not just biology. It lists here, story. Hey man, good morning, brother and stuff. So notice here, economic and educational disadvantage. So economic and educational disadvantages. So if you're miseducated or don't have the means to do certain things, you're gonna have some disadvantages. The outcomes are gonna be different because many of what we're talking about is just raw data. It's information. It's just knowing how life is, how life works, blah 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 blah. And when you're in a certain environment, that lack of knowledge, as I say, ignorance is bliss. But when you come on to life and disease, it's not bliss. I don't know in what situation ignorance is ever bliss. Unless you're foolish, you just want to be foolish. So economic and educational disadvantages. See, this is things we can change. You finish high school, you finish college if you got to that level. You can get the education. Look at the rated program we're doing here. Look at the things that we do. It's constant education. So you can get the education, but if you're in a certain environment, this might not be something that you're really interested in. It might find it's boring. And you're going to die and pay a price for this boring, to think this is boring or not to learn to receive knowledge. So economic and educational disadvantages, again, is going to give you worse outcome financially, health-wise, in every way. Come on now. Healthcare access and quality. So if you're in an area like mine and you say you want to go to the hospital, you just walk right in and you get a bed within minutes, literally. And I'm not joking, it's minutes. You go to those hospitals, they're overcrowded and there's the worst healthcare. So the outcome is going to be worse, and then it's going to be worse for the nurses and doctors because they're treating patients that probably only come in when they have an emergency. So it's a difference between policing in the city and in a rural or suburban area. The police in the city is there to put people behind bars. The police in the rural suburban area is there to protect the people. So one is there to grab the criminal, one is there to protect the people. Somebody say, I don't see the difference, big difference. One is trying to hunt the people down. The other is trying to protect the people. And most of the time, rural and urban, suburban police is just a security guard, glorified security guard. When you're in the city, you have a war. You have SWAT teams that are used and so forth and so on. The total different experience. So individual behavior. So if you notice in Chicago and Detroit and some of these places, there were and different parts of New Jersey and New York, the police had to break up parties done by young people when it was not, and primarily black young people, when it was not determined yet if the disease at what rate affect young people. And it's still not determined. Because remember, all diseases morph, they mutate. And we see this disease mutating. Remember when it started, what were they saying? That it doesn't affect kids, it doesn't affect teenagers, yada yada yada, blah blah. And that's like, I'll be careful of that information. That information is I don't believe it from day one. Why? It might not affect them today, but all viruses morph. And what this virus is showing you, that it is mutating, and it's mutating rapidly within a few months. All disease mutate. And remember, the 1918 Spanish flu killed mostly people between 20s to 40s who had a stronger immune system, and they're more able to have a cytokine storm. Now, is this happening at this point? No. But can it happen shortly from now? Yeah, easily. All disease mutate. One of the reasons why you're not hearing me on here talking about COVID-19 is lab made, because all disease mutate. Anything is possible. It just takes a certain interaction for the disease to start running crazy. So that's why, I don't know, because disease mutate, to say the disease can mutate into a stronger form ain't nothing new. It's something that happens all the time. And this is what the disease is doing. Because what happens? It goes inside of your body and it interacts with its environment. And in that interaction, it could pick up something and it comes out and it becomes wicked. It goes from bad to wicked. You don't know. So we don't know. It's just how biology works. The next thing they say is biological. It could be that something is wrong with the person. I believe this biological could be added to the idea of food insecurity and nutrition. So I don't know what they're talking about there, so I'll leave it alone. Comorbidities like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, asthma, HIV, morbid obesity, liver disease, and kidney disease. And most naturally, if your system is already taxed and overtaxed, you have inflammatory process running wild in your body, then you have a stronger chance of dying from this disease. The weaker you are, most naturally, the more susceptible you are. And that will go for just about any disease, but a disease like this that is trying to take over your body and is infecting all areas of your body and damaging all areas of your body, any weakness will make it more. So what it is, again, all of what we said before and everything we're going to say after this, that JAMA list will be more prevalent in like Native Americans, the oppressed people in the society, Native Americans, Hispanic, blah, 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 or poor people. So it could be a poor white community, and they would have the same susceptibility because what they're going to have high rates of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, asthma, HIV, morbid obesity, liver disease, and kidney disease. So it really doesn't matter on the racial or not. What it really matters is on the care. It doesn't matter so much even if you're poor, because you could be very poor and eat a very healthy diet of beans and rice. And you're going to have less comorbidity. You know, beans, rice, and lettuce, and yada, yada, yada. You have a vegan, plant-based diet. And you're not going to have, or you're going to have less or under control comorbidities. You see, so money really is not the issue, but you find all the time in the trailer parks and the ghettos and stuff like that, what you end up having is people who really take limited care of themselves because of ignorance. Everything that we're listing here becomes affect the quality of life and then the health outcomes. But these are, to me, the things that you can do for yourself, the fragments when it comes on to health, that nobody have to do this for you. The small things, instead of waiting for the big $100,000 operation and so forth. More crowded conditions and crowded neighborhoods. So if you can avoid people, it's hard for you to quarantine in an apartment building, especially when I say it's a high-rise apartment building. You have to go up and down the stairs. And if somebody goes up the stairs coughing, you'd have to know. So you're upstairs, you're at the 10th floor. And somebody went up the stairs because he didn't want to take the elevator. And he went up the stairs coughing, coughing, coughing. He goes up. And they say minimum, it will be there for half an hour in the air. Just say. You come down. You say, okay, man, when do I go? Okay, good. Go now. You run, well, you're inhaling more. You walk down, you're still inhaling more because now you're moving. You're going to get that. You have a higher chance, I should say. And viral load matters. So probably you're not going to get too much to get you sick, but you're going to get that. But if you add now other health outcome, like you have a comorbidity, your immune system was already low because you have AIDS or stuff like that, you're going to be in more trouble. See that? So more cardiac conditions in buildings, neighborhoods, increase your chance. So somebody said, well, what do I do about that? That's why you need to listen to what we're saying here, especially like on Monday, Thursday. Go try and make yourself some money, get a trade, get a career, and try to get yourself out of that condition. That condition is susceptible for any disease running, not just COVID-19. Air quality. So when you're in certain locations, most naturally, the air quality is worse. Worse, more pollution, more air quality. You can see maps. Just go online and type in air quality. Look at the air quality over any major city: Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, Miami, New York City. Look at the air quality, Philadelphia. You can see it's pure pollution because there's so many people crammed into a smaller square mile area. So, and then there's a lot of industries and all that. So you're gonna have more problem. This is why you look over places like China and stuff like that. Wherever the big cities are, that's where you're gonna get more issues. Makes sense. So air quality, public facing occupations is another bigger one. Think about it. The lower end workers are the ones taking the drubbing from this disease right now. And I say for now because it's spreading to the rural areas. But think about this, right? Public facing jobs. This to me is one of the big ones, right? Who are in more public facing jobs? Black American, Hispanic, right? So in those jobs, what you're gonna have is more exposure. I remember when the disease started running in April, or was it March? End of March, in April, somewhere there. There was a bus driver that posted a video on social media saying that there was a lady in the bus coughing without a mask. And this what happened in Detroit. And within 2 weeks, he died from COVID-19. He catch it. And it just happened 2 weeks before he posted the video and said, look, I'm complaining this lady's here. She's on the bus. She's coughing. And she has no mask on and blah, blah. So she was sick with the disease. And she's coughing it out. And he's now in a public-facing job. Boom, he died. Right? How many bus drivers have died in New York, New Jersey, Chicago, all the major thoroughfares? Greyhound bus drivers, MTA, New Jersey Transit, whatever the transit system for Detroit, BART over there. I think that's the rapid transit system for Los Angeles or San Francisco, whatever it is. Die. Why? Because they're in a public-facing job. But who is a lot of time on those buses? Black men. So here you have it. What happened again in places like New York City? Who has to still go to work? Who are essential workers? A lot of time is the people who have to keep the thing running. Who keeping it running again? It shows Black and Hispanic. So they're in the public eyes and they get a lot of infection. Now you can't really fix that per se because there's nothing wrong to do that job. Those jobs pay good money many times. But here, if you're doing a job like that, then you have to now say, Lord, what am I doing? Well, I see they do a good thing. I think it's a powerful thing they did. Very good thing they did is they blocked off the driver. So they plexiglass the driver off. So the driver can't be breathed upon by the passengers. And I think probably in the future what they need to do is, period, for all buses, is have a separate ear system for the driver. So the driver does not breathe in the air of the regular passengers. For any disease, for just even the influenza, just to protect the driver because he's come in contact with all these sick fowls. And these sick fowls are coming on the bus and infecting him, and he's more susceptible. Just cage him off, give him his own air. They all can go infect themselves because their infection is less than him, or their exposure because they're just on the bus for a little bit and then they leave. So again, it's not, notice here, that's why many people are making a mistake. They're thinking, oh, blacks are dying. It's not really blacks who are dying. It's this reasonable situation. And I know of so many people who have died on buses who were drivers or they pick it up because they're going to work. Other people I know personally who were working in all this shutdown and they were driving on either the train or the bus. And they picked it up on the train or the bus. So they're doing these jobs. And if you think about New York, there were pictures and videos that I saw on social media that there were pictures and videos I saw on social media where the trains in New York City in the midst of April was still crowded. Who was on, we see the picture, is mostly the workers who are doing job that they have to go to work, and they were still on crowded trains. What they should have done was increase the amount of trains and decrease the amount of ridership to protect these lower end workers, the blue collar workers, who again were primarily black and Hispanic. But that's why this disease was confusing. These people were getting sick. I'm gonna give you an example. Of 2 weeks ago or so, Governor Comer came out and said that 66% of people who ended up at the hospital got the disease while at home. Well, here's the problem. Some people were still going to work. Some people were still going out shopping. Or many people were still going out shopping, going to work. It was not a hard quarantine, as many of the conspiracy theorists were saying that they're going to shut it down, bring in the National Guard. Pure madness. Never did that. So people were still moving around. People were in these people's house, I believe, were still going to work. And here's the thing with the disease. I believe that the percentage of the people they say, oh, they're going to have mild disease and they're going to have a mild response to the disease. I believe a percentage of those people got the disease before, went home, manifested no symptom, and the disease was inside of them getting worse, and then they came to the hospital. That's how I believe the disease works. I believe from the people I've talked to, they've made a mistake with this disease. They're miscalculating the incubation period. They're telling the person, if you have not been sick for 2 weeks, you can be out of quarantine. I don't believe it works like that, number one. Number two, people who have got the disease and gotten better, they have shown that they are still sick because they're feeling sick, but they can't. You don't pick up the disease in them. So they're not symptomatic, but the disease is still there. And there's reports coming out, and you can read about that. You'll see there's enough report and people I'm talking to personally. So the problem is they're going home with the disease. But again, if you look at what's going on in these city areas, most of the poor people in the city that are blue-collar worker don't drive to work, especially because of crowding on the highways. They take public transportation. So they have to sit there for half an hour or whatever time, breathing in all that mess that is on the train. Hence, they're going to get sick. And that's why the numbers are so high. But somebody who, it's just black people. It's these issues here, like public facing occupation. They have to deal with the public constantly. So they can't go hide away in the office, or they can't say, I'm going to take furlough, I'm going to take unemployment, and I'm going to head up to a rural area. I'm going to sit low. They have to still be working because they live from paycheck to paycheck. Another important issue here, let me just see real quickly what Brother Ernesto said. Don't forget the Asian, Indians, and Chinese food market. Right, those food places, they never are shut, right? So, I don't know if you're saying that to say a good way to not, because I think it's a good way to eat healthy and eat cheaper. And if that's the aim you were saying there, is to buy from the ethnic supermarkets. You can get better quality food. Or if you're saying they have public facing jobs, so they were getting sick. Even my area, the main supermarket in my area is ShopRite, and they had a contamination. We had to shut one of ShopRite down and decontaminate it because they had an outbreak. So people that they have to deal with other people, public facing jobs, supermarkets, meat packing plant where they have to be tied in, these call centers, all these places constantly have outbreak. Well, it's not a biological issue there. It's an issue that people are very close and they're breathing in the air that the next person breathing. I would even go as far as say even with a mask on, because remember, a mask will limit, if you say you cough or you sneeze, that spread will be hit the mask, but some of it gets out. Come on, you've had a mask or something. If you take a serious sneeze, you blow that thing away. So, good point. So it's both. You're saying, yeah. So yeah, if you in certain jobs, even if you're not facing the public, I should say, because they say public facing jobs. Remember, the meat packing plant is not per se public facing job, but you have hundreds of people at a time working in the same shift, shoulder to shoulder. and somebody cough, there's a conveyor belt. You don't see that the conveyor belt even in itself is creating a flow, an airflow, but it is. You ever have somebody walk past you? What you feel after they walk past? You don't feel a whiff of air go by after they pass you? Because there is a turbulence in the air. They're not a plane, but it's a turbulence. They're not a car, but there's still turbulence. And so imagine there's a thing, just conveyor belt, just keep pushing the air along. So this person up here is coughing. Back then they probably didn't have no mask. They didn't think about that because they're all the way over in Iowa. And it just whiff on down and just infecting everybody. Next people start dropping dead. Why? They don't have a public facing job, but they have a job that's working in crowded condition. Who works most in those jobs? People who are blue collar workers. So that's why the disparity. So again, what do you do in that situation is not much they can do for themselves. No, there's something I can do for myself. So I'll pause here a little bit. Because what they can do for themselves is now they have to boost up their per se immunity, taking supplements, water, exercise. You got to do for yourself what the boss don't do for you. But there's something that they have to do for you to get you the protective gear that you need to make sure reroute and redo the air, the duct system in the thing, installing ionizer, UV lights, all these things to try to kill and reduce the flow of the disease. Same thing can be done for the buses and those places. Use UV and stuff like that and kill the bacteria that's floating and viruses floating on the bus. Anyway, back to this list here, very important. So chronic stress, right? So again, you can see, anytime I think about that, I'm thinking about like bus drivers, because I've heard some of this report about bus drivers being spat on and stuff like that, and people stabbing bus drivers and stuff like that. So, you deal with the public, and we deal with public, that's stressful. I always respect people who have to day in, day out deal with hundreds, even could be thousands of people on a daily basis. I don't know if any job deal with thousands, but you normally could have somebody deal with hundreds. So they're in a public facing jobs, people fly on planes, stuff like that. You lock in anything that you lock in a capsule with people is you have a higher risk of getting infected. So there's ways to deal with that. No health insurance. So a person has no health insurance or not good health insurance, they might not go get regular checkup and physicals and blood tests to see where they're at in their levels and so forth. Poorer quality of care. So poor quality of care is going to be another issue in many of these city areas. The hospitals are understaffed. The blue collar workers not getting any good help. But we noticed there that when we started talking about a shutdown, all of a sudden they become essential because they are essential. Supermarket workers, delivery workers, people work on the various different liver system. They know it's essential, but they have more exposure because they're going to come in contact with more people. Hence, they're going to have a higher rate of death. So the because think about it. If you say the comorbidity is these comorbidity, notice here cancer is not on the list. Who have high rates of cancer? White collar workers have high rates of cancer. And so where's that on the list? Again, if you can isolate yourself with your cancer and other diseases, autoimmune disease, who have higher autoimmune disease already, where the immune system is attacking the self. But again, if you're isolated, you're going to have less of these things. But watch as the disease spread out, that we're going to see that this list is going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So again, but the general population do have diabetes, cardiovascular disease. Again, the biggest killer among all groups, probably especially whites, is going to be cardiovascular disease. So why is the number so high? Because the rate of exposure is going to be higher to certain people. Because of red line and all these things, a lot of the time white blacks find themselves in city areas. They don't live out in the rural areas. So there's not a mix in the rural area and so forth, so forth. On. Let's move on. Poorer quality of care, inequitable distribution of testing. Now many people say, oh, there's tests. And we still hear doctors and nurses complaining of tests. And I remember I'd covered this a few weeks back, that there's a church in Harlem, which is a black area in New York City, who had 11 members die and some more were in a hospital from one church. And so the church was reeling, and the pastor says, look, We need to test to find out who is sick and who is not sick so we can properly isolate and so forth. And they had to bring a testing site near, on the same street near the church. But that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't such a big death and destruction that happened to that local area and that local church. So you have people who have to work in the public, deal with the public, come more exposed. But where's the protection? Where's the concern? But somebody could say, oh, no, it's just biological, or it's just they have worse health outcome. Yeah, that's part of it, but that cannot explain for it, because don't tell me the rest of the society don't have autoimmune disease, don't have other STDs, don't have, you'd have to show me who use Grinder and all these other type of apps more. So then it tells you that there is more reasons to it, not just, oh, they're black or they're Hispanic. They're Hispanic. Notice here, the digital divide. Somebody say everybody have a cell phone. Yeah, but many people don't even have internet at home, especially you get to the poorer parts of the community. It's just one more expense they don't have to pay for. So like this presentation I'm doing, unless they're gonna listen to it on the phone and that's gonna be data, they ain't gonna listen to it. It's just not gonna happen. A lot of older people have a digital divide. So I could talk about the importance of taking some herbs to boost your immune system and to be used to clear the disease if you have it. Taking vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, some zinc anaphor like elderberry and stuff like that. And I could talk about it till the blue in the face. Unless the person has an internet at home, they might have a cell phone and they might be connected to the internet and they might be more apt to go watch movies on it. But they're not going to listen to a program like this. So the digital divide will hurt them more. Notice here, food insecurity and our nutrition, very important again. Food insecurity, our nutrition and nutrition. So where the health food stores in many of these communities don't exist. Where you're gonna find almost universally, except probably for pockets in black community. What are they eating? Genetically engineered food, some cheap conventional grown food, cheap meat, cheap everything cheap. Because that's logical, right? They're going to be eating Cheetos and Twinkies and blah, 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 blah. What is going to be the health outcome? What's going to be their nutrition? I guarantee that in the black community, it's not just vitamin D. 80-something% of blacks are vitamin D deficient. 62% of Hispanics in America are vitamin D deficient. Well, what happened? Hispanics still have a lighter skin, but they're still, in an average, but they're still vitamin D deficient. A lot of people go to work in the daytime and they come home at night, live like, like almost like owls, 24 hours. So that's going to make the deficiency even worse. So most people are not going to get this information. They're not going to know what vitamin D does with the immune system passively and actively. So then they're not going to know what to do. So the ignorance is going to cost lives, and it's costing lives. Again, it is almost guaranteed that most people in that situation eating all that denatured food and don't have even your regular health food store to buy supplements from and buy real food from. They're gonna have deficiency in almost probably all the minerals, including the key minerals like selenium and zinc. They're gonna have deficiency in vitamin Z because they're in a food desert, so they're not really eating oranges and stuff like that for the most part. And we can keep going on and on and on, but that's what we're here for Wednesday, right? It's health. So these things, a lot of these things are what we can do for ourselves. We can start addressing for ourselves. You only need a few people who understand this is my plight and this is your plight, and we need to work together to fix ourselves. The system is not going to fix you because the system put you where you are. But also you have sat there in that ignorance and have not cried for knowledge, as Proverbs said, has not seek for knowledge, sitting in ignorance, sitting in suffering, and not having a belief system like I've come to accept that God don't want me to suffer, so I need to seek. And when you seek, Christ says, you shall find. When you knock, it shall be open unto you. Ask, and it shall be given unto you. But many people are asking, they're already educated, too educated for their own good. But these situations are solvable, so to speak, if that's a word. they can be dealt with, most of them. Now again, if you work in a public facing job and say you're a bus driver, they didn't install a plexiglass, and go to the manufacturer and say, fix this thing, get this bus that the bus driver does not have to inhale the whatever, whoever is coughing up back there, because he's on there for 8 hours or so a day. That you can do for yourself, but the manufacturers can do that for you. But the situation with wearing a mask, taking your nutrients, start eating real food to get antioxidant in the system, that when you get sick from any disease, your body can fight. Getting a filter if you live in the city and you don't have the money to get out. Well, you can fix the city, but at least you can fix where you sleep. Getting an air filter that has UV, HEPA, charcoal filter, ionizer to clean the air so that when you're breathing, you have a therapy going on. You can do these things for yourself. You can learn to deal with your stress. Go join a church, keep the Sabbath day holy. Really enjoy 24-hour Sabbath. Take a break. And nobody should be doing public facing job and not keep a Sabbath day holy. You need a break where you just get away and have some therapy to deal with the stresses of this world and to remind you that this is the devil's world, but God is soon to come to burn him and them up. The poor healthcare quality, I'm going to deal with that today and tomorrow. I'm going to try to touch on that a little bit. That was my second article I want to go to. The digital divide. Sometimes you have to pay. So paying for even for basic internet so you can start getting online and make Google become your friend. Make Wikipedia become your friend. Make Healthline become your friend. Start learning. Ignorance is our enemy. Ignorance is our enemy, especially the enemy of those who are poorer. As I say, if I preach here and I can help the poorest in the society, those who are suffering the most, I can help anybody. But if I can't help, if I can only help people that are already known and knowledgeable, I really can't help the poor. So that's what we seek here. We start at the bottom, like Jesus. Jesus preached to the poor and people were offended by it. And I know we're going to offend people when we preach to the poor. But what's the point of preaching to people who already know? Christ says he came for people who are sick, not for people who are healthy. And he's a doctor. And then the inadequate distribution of tests, behavior. We adjust our behavior. We take precaution. It's okay. We make people who are foolish continue to live foolish. They'll die like fools. We know that there's crowded conditions, but as I say, if you have to do a certain job, you have to face it. But take your precaution. You know, when somebody walk away, probably take some Lysol and spray it on the air with their bag of diseases. Know that there's racism and discrimination. You can't do anything about that in our society, but you can do something about how you live. You know, as long as you're living and you're following Christ, you're above the average person. It doesn't matter. Their racism and discrimination will be blunted by the gospel, blunted by your lifestyle, your choices. Social and structural determinant. You can do these things I'm talking about here from day to day, and you will overcome the social and structural determinants. They will not determine your outcome. They have not determined my outcome, and those are practice these things. So they will not determine your outcome. They'll change your outcome. You change your diet and lifestyle, you change your outcome. You change your philosophies. You accept the deeper principles in the Bible. You change your outcome. 80% of life is not what people do to us, is what we choose to make happen to us. You can change certain things. As I say, the bus driver cannot change the fact that his bus is circulating bad air to him. He cannot change the fact that his bus doesn't have a plexiglass to cover him, but he can change at least some of the things he can do for himself. So we focus always firstly and primarily on what we can change for ourselves. The rest of it, you go protest to the owners and the bus company. Say, you need to be able to protect me because I'm going to have to be out there. And if I stop driving and we all die, we're going to shut this thing down. You're going to find out that Wall Street is not the most important thing. The doctor in the emergency room is not the important thing. It's the workers that keep the wheels turning in the basement is the most important thing. Actually, the most important. We all play a role in this life. But as I say, you see how quickly when the meatpacking plants started shut down, how quickly the government enact war powers to keep them going. They didn't do that for the mass. They didn't do it for anything else. But they do that for the food because we all need some food, right? So again, you saw, okay, the meatpacking plant people, they're important. So we all important. And so you complain and you protest. But in the meantime, you follow what we're talking about here. You do what you can to protect yourself. I'm gonna introduce a second article that I'm gonna deal with tomorrow, and I'm just gonna talk about the introduction of it because I think it's important for you and I to understand what's going on in the society and why some of these issues will hit poorer communities, minorities, bigger. And you can read the article, and so that I don't have to do too much reading tomorrow when I cover this on current events, because this is really what's happening. This is one of the issues. There's multiple things going on. You know, money is the root of all evil, the Bible says, right? And those who love it really cause so much evil, the love of money. Notice here, private equity firms now control many hospital, ERs, and nursing homes. Is it good for health? My answer is no. That's terrible. All right. So this is a terrible development. You can find this in NBCnews.com. All right. Important here. So private equity firms are buying up hospitals, nursing home, and ER operations. The drive for profit can run counter to helping patients, critics says. So I'm going to introduce this and then I'm going to go off to something else. And we'll pick this up back tomorrow. But when you think about this is important. Go read it before I talk about it, because this is devastating. This is terrible. In March, as coronavirus gripped the nation, veteran emergency room Dr. Ming Ling was growing concern. Ling felt his facility, Peace Health St. Joseph Medical Center in Bellingham, Washington, was unprepared for a pandemic, so he went to his superior for help. Frustrated by their response, Ling took to social media, criticizing hospital operation in a series of posts. Days later, the hospital removed Ling from the rotation in emergency department. He had worked at Peace Health for 17 years. On the typical medical industry practice, Ling case would have been subject to peer review, expert says, but Ling employer wasn't Peace Health. It was Team Health, a physician practice and staffing company that provide the hospital with emergency room services. Team Health is owned by Blackstone Group. I'm going to repeat it again. Team Health is owned by Blackstone Group. I'm sure you've heard that name many a time. A finance giant. When a private staffing firm teams up with a hospital, the right to due process can disappear. Ling case was never heard. One of the object is to point out any deficiencies in the system that may harm the patient, Ling told NBC News. Because private equity has taken over healthcare, it has made that difficult. So what this article does, and I'm going to talk about it in tomorrow, very important, is that a larger share of the emergency room, nursing home, hospitals are being bought out by these private equity company. And the aim of private equity company, as you know it, is they buy a company, make the books look pretty, and then sell it for bigger profit. So that's what they're doing. So remember, as this going on, we have problems all over the country with hospitals being closed. Many of these hospitals being taken over by a private equity company, or they're just being closed even by them if they're not profitable. And then many of these places, nursing homes that are having these massive outbreaks, are run by a private equity company. So think about it. If you went to this hospital, Peace Health, St. Joseph Medical Center in Washington, you believe this is run by the Catholic Church. Probably the Catholic Church had to settle some lawsuit with this homosexual rapist. And so they had to sell it. So now they sell it. And now it's run by Blackstone Group. And when you hear the names that I'm going to go over, if you have time to look at this article, it's amazing, because this is now Carlyle Group. I mean, why is this groups doing into health? So they have taken over, they say 47% of physicians in this study in 2018, they're working for these private equity group. So why is this important to our discussion? Why is it important? You have to understand, you're going to somewhere that has a snake and a cross, similar to what Christ talked about. This was represent care and health, something that is supposed to be for your well-being. And most of these institutions used to be run by, most of these hospitals used to be run by churches And most of them used to be run by the government, churches and government, and non-profits. Now they be run by private equity groups. So you have the pharmaceutical company, private equity groups, and investment groups. You have the hospitals, ER, nursing homes, where grandma, private equity group. They just run for the bottom line. There is no philosophy of care and then taking care of the sick and blah, blah. It's just money. So if I say to you, look, prevention, nourishment, cleansing, address the small things in your life, do it. I shouldn't say do it. I should say please do it. Because I really want you to take care of yourself. Because this is what you have as your option. So please do it. Because over there, what they're running, they're just buying up hospitals and medical system. Is not about all of that anymore, but helping the sick and all that. There's not no Florence Nightingale. You can look into it. They're trying to take over hospitals all over the world because they just want to run the whole. Because think about it, like slavery, what's the best profit income making thing? Is when people are sick. When people are sick, they'll spend any amount of money, and then these companies also run the debt collection arms of these hospitals and these nursing homes. So not only are they're showing that they can make profit, become the god of everything, and that's our system for you. So take care of yourself. You don't want to go into this system. These systems are not run by people of a philosophy that they're following Jesus and they have that snake on the cross and they're going to try to. No. It's not medical anymore. This is all raw capitalism. This is all money. Money, 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 money. This is all it is. So you take care of yourself. So you can see why now when you have these poor outcomes and you have all this suffering, you understand that there's deeper facets, but nobody talking about that. What they're talking about is, oh, well, they're going to take out the National Guard and stuff like that. There's something deeper going on in the system that is the fabric of the economy is being destroyed because the darkness of men's heart to make money for profitability. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. So you better take care of yourself and you do whatever you can. If you do have to end up in there, pray to God. Because everybody around you, they're working for private equity. Not everybody, not every company, but a lot of these hospitals and stuff, they're not doctors anymore. They're people working for private equity. They're there to make money. And they go run that tab up. And this is what's going to happen. Things have changed. So we get more on that. And we're going to keep talking about these solutions. So again, you get up the fragments. Do the little things you can do. Don't ignore them. Don't think, oh, there's a big facility over there for me. There's a big hospital, there's a big pharmacy, there's a big pharmaceutical company. No, there's a big profit-making thing. You will be reamed out. Mark 8, verse 1 onward, Christ again elucidate this. I'm going to deal with this text more on Friday. But I'm going to notice here that Christ, I'm going to mention here again that the Pharisees wanted the big hit. They were impressed with anything big. And even the disciples were trained that way. Look at the temple. Look at the marble. Look at this. And Christ said, not one stone be left unturned. And it's the same prediction for these corrupt institutions that take all this money and they try to use healthcare as a big profit center. Nursing as a big profit center. So people are impressed by this. Look at the white coats. Look at the big $100 billion drug, blockbuster drug. And this is what society is. And they're not saying how much people is killing, how much money is making the investors. So the Pharisees were into that mindset. And Christ was saying, I'm going to teach you the disciples something. Don't focus on the big hit. Don't focus on the big miracle. Pick up the fragments. Deal with the small stuff. Deal with the simple food. You'll be blessed. I'm telling you, this is what you need to do. Don't think that if somebody say, go exercise, go juice, go take some herbs. Somebody say, oh, what's that? You peon herbs in comparison to my $100,000 treatment for immunotherapy. Your simplistic herbs and your simplistic juicing and exercise and water in comparison to my blockbuster $100 billion drugs that's murdering people all over the country. Really? Disabling people, causing people to be all kind of weird side effects. What is that? I'm going to tell you something. might be nothing, but you embrace it and you'll be amazed at what God has put in nature to heal you and to bless you. Let's pray. We thank you, Lord, for your guidance. We thank you, dear Lord, for the way that you have led us in the narrow way by your still small voice. Pray that you may bless us, dear Lord, that we might not be blown away, dear Lord, by all this big money spending and this big thing. And we might just do the simple things, the simple sunlight, the simple things that's going to heal our bodies and bless us and make us happier, healthier. May you be with us, dear Lord, and may we open up our eyes and wake up. It's my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow morning where we should talk about current events. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.